We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AV Rant. I'm Tom Antry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Bobby. Bobby has a room that's nearly 12 by 12 foot, give or take an inch, he says. He has a row of 4 seats that are about 8 inches off the back wall. He's using the Epson 8350 projector that's about 10 feet from lens to screen with a 92-inch screen. He's already planning to upgrade to an Epson 5040 UB projector, and he wants to upgrade to Atmos sound too. Number 1. He is undecided about which receiver to buy. His front runners are the Pioneer SCLX801 and the Denon AVR X4300H. He figures that with his layout, 5.2.4 makes more sense than 7.2.4. Do we agree? And if so, what should his Atmos layout be, and which AV receiver will be the easiest to set up with that layout? Well, we know from history, and I don't know this one in particular, but I'm guessing that the Pioneer will have very fixed locations for your speakers and only certain configurations that it will allow for Atmos, whereas the Denon will be much more flexible. The Denon will also have the better room correction. So basically, Denon is the answer to the which receiver question.
Yeah.
If those are the two options. 5.2.4 makes more sense than 7.2.4. I agree. You're only 8 inches off the back wall. I do not think putting speakers behind you makes any... above and behind you for front, rear height speakers, maybe, but they're not really going to be rear heights because they're going to be
not a whole lot of
high
behind you for there to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the angle. If you actually use the angle, you would actually be putting them on the back wall, but they would still be called rear heights, but they'd be awfully close. I would probably just use top fronts and top middles. And then,
you'd have to call them front heights. In the
heights.
case of the Denon.
I always forget about that. Yeah.
But top middles completely makes sense. When you only have 8 inches of space behind you, you're essentially going to put the two speakers directly above you. I mean, if you want to eke them a tiny bit behind you, that's fine, but they would still be top middles.
I would treat the first reflection points of those speakers, though, on your back wall. On the back wall, for sure. I would also put something behind my head.
I mean, regardless, I'd want some absorption behind me if I only have 8 inches from the back of my seat to the back wall. So definitely some absorption behind you. But yeah, top middles in ceiling speakers that are directly above you, and then go about 4.5, 5 feet in front of you, and call those front heights. So it's still going to be on your ceiling, but because of the angle that it creates, you're still going to call them front heights. So about 4.5, 5 feet in front of you. And yeah, I definitely agree. The Denon AVR X4300 in this case between those two. First of all, you can do that setup that you want. It can power that entire setup itself. And I prefer Odyssey to MCACC.
Yeah, MCAC. We're about to go out of business. I hope that's not the case. I think competition is good. He was considering either Polk or Mica in-wall speakers. Do we have a strong preference for either, or something else in a similar price range, which is about $50? So he wants in-wall speakers around $50
each. Yeah,
each. Right, each. Yeah, I mean, these are both fine. I mean, if you can get them for $50.
Yeah,
I mean, see much of a difference.
I didn't even know the Mica speakers. I have zero experience with them.
Yeah.
They have a almost suspiciously high customer rating on Amazon. I was like, wait, nobody has 5 stars for speakers. Nobody, unless it's like, one review.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if that, but apparently people like them. I'm not personally a huge fan of Polk speakers, I would almost say in general, but I'm not a huge fan of their in-wall in-ceiling speakers.
It's Atmos speakers, though. I mean, they're just this is for Atmos, right? It was in-walls. I'm sorry,
no, in-walls. So this is his system.
I was thinking on. Okay.
So I mean, if I were trusting the Amazon reviews, apparently those Mica speakers are really, really well liked.
Yeah, that's kind of sketchy.
But I mean, unfortunately for this price range, I have to go some secondhand knowledge, right? But we've had at least one listener, I think it was more than one listener, but at least one listener that I know and pretty much trust his opinions and ears, suggesting Outdoor Speaker Depot. Now, I don't think they actually make any of these speakers themselves. They look like they're a reseller of, OEM created in-wall and in-ceiling speakers.
Absolutely, what they look like.
Yeah. because these look like some similar designs. But they have some, the ones in particular, and I'm forgetting exactly which model number, but if you, we'll have the link to their website on avrant.com in our show notes. If you look through them, they have some that use aluminum dome tweeters, and those tend to be the ones that sound the best out of their lineup. So look for the ones that have the aluminum dome tweeters. They're in this price range. And but it's secondhand knowledge. I haven't heard of myself, so I'm passing that along.
Yeah,
to
they've got
else.
their that looks like aluminum door. There's a IW690. It's $100 a pair, 6.5-inch Kevlar, which they're not allowed to say anymore, but they're still saying it. Woofer, what looks like an aluminum dome tweeter. That's a decent one. And you get a lot cheaper than that too, like $70 a pair. And their reference, ultra, not just reference, but ultra reference is $150 a pair. So, and these do look suspiciously familiar
yeah.
to a lot of speakers I've seen before. Which, you know what? That's great. That is good. The speaker company, remember the speaker company?
Yep. That unfortunately went out of business, but that's
they were a D&M customer.
Idea.
I loved them. They took like companies like I've got basically from my parents' house back in before they sold it in North Carolina. They were MB Quartz. MB Quartz was going out of business or whatever, and they kind of like gave all their speakers to this company and basically took the logos off and sold them for like a song. And that's the kind of stuff that you can get behind. And you just have to, dude. It makes sense to me to go to this website, look at these speakers, and then do like Google image search for them and see what they come up as for other companies. If you find something that looks similar, and I don't mean similar, you're probably going to find something that looks exactly the same. It's probably the same speaker.
Yeah, they have some that look very suspiciously like Atlantic Technology speakers, which are good speakers.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked there. They do also sell backer boxes. I mean, they're affordable, so there's no problem, but you could also just look at the dimensions and make your own box. But at least they have something to go along with the speakers for back enclosures, so I like that too.
All right, he says he's using 2 subwoofers, both at the front of the room, on either side of a 60-inch wide equipment stand. He also wants to put bass shakers in the seats. Sometimes he wants to be able to plug in headphones, but still just have the bass shakers active. If he plugs headphones into the receiver, though, that shuts off all the other outputs. So can he have both setups? Full 5.2.4 with bass shakers and headphones with bass shakers. I totally looked into this. I couldn't really find anything to make this work. Is that true?
So Zone 2, right? If you attach the Zone 2 pre-outs, now you'd have to make sure you get a bass shaker amplifier that includes a low-pass filter. Butt Kicker sells those, so that's not a problem. You could get an amplifier from Butt Kicker that includes a low-pass filter. However, with the X4300, you wouldn't be able to use HDMI surround sound audio into Zone 2. You would have to have a second connection from your player, which would be just your stereo red-white plugs. You plug that into an input, select that, send that to Zone 2, then at the same time in the main zone have that playing, and then you connect your headphones, because Zone 2 can still be active while the headphone output is active, right? The main zone turns off, but the Zone 2 pre-outs can still be working. So you happen to have them both set to the same source. That should work, and it actually gives you a way of...
He doesn't tell us what his sources are going to be, right? So he might have more than one source.
Well, I'm sure they're plugging into his AV receiver, all of them. So the idea is that he plugs his headphones into his AV receiver that shuts off the main zone. But if you have a separate stereo analog connection from each source that you want to be able to do this with, and then use that for the Zone 2, and that actually gives you a way of easily turning your tactile transducers on or off. You just turn Zone 2 on or off and have it set to the same source as your main zone. I think that'll work.
Hopefully there's no delay or weirdness.
That's
what I would be worried about, is delays.
Although when it's only a tactile transducer, maybe it's not the end of the world. But
all right,
it's a little hinky, but that's
what you're going to run into. Problem here is this: every source you plug in has to have not only its digital connection, which should be HDMI, but also an analog stereo connection. Which means that you just buy this new LG Blu-ray, Ultra HD Blu-ray player we talked about. It doesn't have it.
True.
Right? You could not use that one with your tactile transducers.
Not in this setup.
Not in this setup. Not the way you're talking about it. Yeah.
But there are Ultra HD Blu-ray players that have stereo analog outs, so
that's what you just have to make sure that it's got it and everything.
And yeah, if it's for an Xbox, that could be an issue.
Yeah, because Xbox, they have those. The one I used to have had like the breakout box with component, and all that stuff.
Although I guess you could do you could buy a separate little box that, or you could plug optical into your AV receiver and have that be your Zone 2, as long as, because the X4300 can send anything to Zone 2 as long as it's 2-channel stereo that's being input. So that can be an optical connection. It can be a stereo analog.
How do you make that optical connection put out stereo while you're
in the Xbox settings, you set the optical output to PCM.
Oh, can you
and
do
you
that?
set the HDMI output to Bitstream. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So I think this can work for most things.
Most things. I think most things.
Yeah.
Be prepared to be disappointed at some point, because I really think it's not going to work.
Or take Tom's advice and just don't have bass shakers.
And move. Hey, my motto is: if you need bass shakers, you need bigger subs.
But with headphones, come on.
I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
If yes, that's fair enough. But you could use a headphone amp and do it that way too. That's the only thing I could think of. There's like a headphone amp that would make it work. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.